What's up guys, today I'm going to do a video on controller considerations, and I definitely intend to go very in-depth, like really talking about the constraints of the controllers and stuff. I am just going to come out swinging, right? A lot of people say just play what you like, and yeah, I think ultimately that's the end result, but there are differences with controllers that you want to consider, and you know, obviously there's always a discussion about hitbox and stuff, so I wanted to talk about that kind of controversy a little bit. Anyway, let me get right into it. I'm going to go off the line. I'm going to talk about stick, I'm going to talk about hitbox, I'm going to talk about pad, and in doing so, while I'm on those topics, I want to get really into the nitty-gritty about like shortcuts on hitbox, shortcuts on pad with dual input, and the constraints around dual input, right? So if you want to understand that kind of thing, I'll get right into it. So here, let me move my camera down. I apologize, I only have one camera, but you know, I believe that this will be enough to actually like display the examples. So I'm using Under Night because if you could see on the side, it shows a great frame counter for how long I'm pressing input. So this is actually great for showing you how long you're holding inputs, the time between your inputs, right? Just like that, you can see that there's a 2-frame gap in between my left and right inputs, right? So anyway, that's the intro on that. Talking about stick, right? So I am a player who plays pad predominantly, but I play stick for every other game that I play, right? So that is something that you could also do if you want to keep your muscle memory separate, which is the case for me because my primary game is BBCF. I play BBCF on pad, and stick is kind of my go-to for other games. Also, if you want to play an arcade and everything, which is, you know, you go to Japan, you're gonna probably end up playing an arcade. Anyway, talking about constraints. So the throw distance of the lever is innately longer, right? And it has pretty tangible effects. I can't hit left-right as consistently fast, right? So here, my inputs, if you could see, my left to right input has a gap of a single frame, and then it has a gap of 0 frames, which means that my left input was on 1 frame, and my my right input was on 1 frame, and my left input was on next. I'm sorry. So you can see I'm trying to do this pretty fast. It's pretty difficult to get that kind of next frame opposite input, but it's possible, right? So it's really not too crazy, but overall the major constraint about that is about letting lever return to neutral for a lot of things. So that's something you kind of want to think about, especially for things that you have to do like dashing, right? So generally I have a 4-frame to 3-frame input for my dash on stick, and I tried pretty hard here, right? So your inputs are going to be like a smidge slower. I think normally it's about a frame slower than the usual manual input, but stick notably doesn't have a lot of directional input shortcuts because of the lever, right? You've only got one input method, but the advantage is this. You can press many buttons at once very comfortably, right? And this helps a lot with negative edge, because a lot of times you'll want to release inputs for those characters, and it is just a nightmare on pad. Honestly, like if you want to look at this, right? How am I supposed to do this? I'm gonna negative edge this while doing this, and then press this, and then release the triangle button while holding circle and square. It ain't happening, chief. So, pretty much, stick is, I think, the most simple, straightforward go-to option for a lot of tournament players. It's kind of custom at this point. It's a lot of fun. Honestly, I have a lot of fun playing on stick, so I play on stick. But, you know, it is what it is. It's a classic thing. But we're in the future now, right? So we are so far in the future that I'm going to do this, right? We're so far in the future, and it's 2019 right now, right? That I'm going to do this. I'm going to go into my PS4 settings and press this. Enable button assignments, right? And suddenly, my stick has been transformed. So the reason why I did that was because I remapped all of my directional inputs to my buttons, right? And this is actually to emulate the kind of inputs that you'd get on a hitbox. And I'm going to do this to show you some of the button shortcuts that you can execute. So if you could see from my inputs, right? My double tap dash is not so much faster. Of course, I'm not a primary hitbox player, but I'm not really, I'm not really feeling this too much. I played hitbox for a little while back when BBCF dropped because I was kind of drawn to it by the hype, but I quickly found that it was not what I wanted. So one of the other things that hitbox provides is you also get the button spread of the stick for your right hand, for your left hand, right? There's a bunch of input shortcuts you could do, like that, right? I didn't double tap. I'm going to press this, and then I'm going to hold this, right? And the way this works is because of the SOCD on hitboxes, right? And it means that when you have two opposite inputs, the game will actually hit neutral or whatever input depending on the game, right? So in this case, I'm pressing forward and then back, and that's giving me neutral. And then I'm releasing back, and it's giving me forward again, right? So what do we get with forward, neutral, forward? Dash, right? So you could potentially get a very fast input for dash this way. And see if we can get the fabled. See, the fabled. I can't do it. Oh, there's a 3-frame dash anyway, right? So your dashes, you have shortcuts for that. There are also other shortcuts that you could do with DP. Well, for DP, right? But here's the thing. Not all games allow it, right? So if we were talking about this game, there's a shortcut with DP where you hold 6, right? And then you hit back and down to get a down input. And then you release the back input and it will give you down forward for the DP, right? Now that's something that you could do in hitbox depending on the game. But if you were watching the input viewer over there, it didn't happen, right? Look, watch this. Why? Why? It's because in Under Night, if you have two inputs that give you neutral on a direction, it actually disables all of your other inputs. Because look, I'm going to release these. So even if I'm holding up and down, I can't hit left or right. So the DP shortcut doesn't work here, but the dash shortcut does, right? So you can get some nifty backdashes that way. Anyway, what's the other thing about hitbox? So one thing that I wanted to tell you that I experienced while playing hitbox with SOCD on that gave neutral was that half circles are very hard, right? So I did a half circle there, but it wasn't super fast, right? But look, here, I'm gonna do a slow half circle, right? And it comes out, right? But hitbox actually has 2 points of error on these inputs. Because if you're holding this, right, if you're holding back, then you press down, you have to release down, and then you have to press this, and then you have to release this, right? And that seems pretty straightforward, but if you do it fast, or too fast, oh, I'm good. I'm real good. If you do it too fast, you'll miss the down input, right? Which you can see there. Or like. So you can see I'm not completing my inputs here. In fact, I actually got a neutral input there because I was holding all 3 buttons at once. So you want to be a little careful, and it's always better to run it a little slower just to make sure that you get this. And you might be thinking, that ain't no problem. That ain't no problem. But here's the thing, right? For an input method like stick, or pad even actually. Here, so I'll switch the pad just to change these back to normal. So you'll be friends with this accessibility setting, right? So the thing about stick and pad is that it will automatically remove that second point of error for you, right? So let me try a half circle here. Right? I don't really have to worry too much, and my total input time for the half circle is generally a lot faster. You could see that, right? So look at how fast my inputs were there. I hit down, back 1 frame, down 1 frame, down forward for 2 frames. So my total transition time for the half circle is way smoother, and it's way more consistent. So I definitely really like that about stick, and pad is actually the same way too, right? Because you can't press the 2 directional inputs at the same time. So this is something to think about with mechanical pad because it's more similar to hitbox, but anyway, let's get on to the real meat, pad. SKD, why do you like pad so much? Why is pad so broken, right? So you remember all the things we talked about with the hitbox shortcuts? Guess what? Pad can do everything better. This is OD. Alright, so here, I hope you're excited. So I'm gonna go back in this just to show you an even easier way to do it, right? So here, I'm gonna go back to custom button assignments. I'm gonna reset everything to neutral, or as they were, right? And watch this. Watch this. Watch that. Oh my god. Oh my god, what did we just do? Now my right stick is mapped to direction, right? So remember that very cool forward dash that we could do on hitbox? Watch this. See, I can press this. And I'm not saying press right, which you can do. If you kind of plink this with a down input, you'll also get that dash, right? So, look at that. It doesn't work in Undernight for a dash, but it works in BBCF, right? If you want to look at how clean my inputs are with there, did you see that? I hit forward from neutral for 1 frame, and then I hit down for 1 frame, and then I hit forward. So in BBCF that will give you a dash, but in this game it won't, right? So technically speaking, hitbox would actually be preferable for this, for dashing, or doing dashes from neutral, right? But that is game-centric again, right? So BlazBlue is a game where the input processing is very similar to Undernight, and the way input processing for pad works for dual input in most anime games by ArcSys is that D-pad takes priority over this, right? And that's how that dash thing works. So if you're looking, right, I'm holding back here, and I'm going nuts on the stick, and nothing's happening. But I release the pad, and as soon as it goes to neutral, my inputs come out, right? So what that means is you can buffer inputs. So say I'm gonna try to do up, right? I'm gonna hit up on the pad. And as soon as I release the D-pad, it resets to neutral, and my next input is up on the next possible frame as soon as I release, right? So that's crazy. Look at that. I hit up, down, up in the span of 1 frame. Tell me that's not crazy. Tell me that's not crazy. So pad has a lot of really nice tricks that you can do. Overall, the input speed is a little faster. If you could see, I like more consistently hit the left to right in a single frame because my hands are pretty fast. I'm used to playing pad. But look at how cleanly I was able to hit left and right on the next possible frame. So on average, my inputs for left to right on pad are a frame faster, right? So the other thing is general inputs are going to be, you know, we can't really get much faster. It's like, I was on down, so from down, right, if we wanted to do a 2-3-6 move, I took 1 frame to transition to a forward input. Again, I took 1 frame to transition to a forward input. From, yeah. We can do some pretty fast inputs on pad, if you could see all those 1s right there. So pad's input speed is actually about as fast as you need to be, because 1 frame, what's faster than 1 frame? Not getting the input, right? So at this point, I'm kind of like checked out on speed, and I have all the input shortcuts that I'd possibly need. That I don't mind not having the input shortcuts on hitbox, because I have them on pad, right? So that is part of my selection, right? So just if you don't believe me, right? Just if you don't believe me, I'm gonna do it on pad, all right? Why is pad broken? Well, here you go. So I'll do a little bit of a wrap up after, but here, I just wanted to show you a bit of the cool input shortcuts that you could do in BBCF. So cool. All right. Let's kick off with a banger. What song do you like? Conciliation or Pandora Tears? I think I heard Pandora Tears. Right? You guys like Pandora Tears? Too bad. Anyway, here, as you can see, right? Boop, 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 boop. Right? So, in this game, we can get command backdashes and backdashes by doing right, down, right. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. We're geniuses. Watch this, watch this. Oh my bad. Look at that cool input. You see the virtual stick in the bottom left? It's dope, right? Look at that. That's so cool. Left, right, super OS. Anyway, you got the idea. So I'm going to switch over back to me, give you some comments to wrap up with. So overall, right, what's our conclusion on this? Well, my hair's a mess. What's our conclusion on this? Well, I need some music before I go off. Tranquil days. Let me put the stick down, finish talking about this. So I showed you everything that I need to show you, right? So what do we think? Pad seems kind of stupid, right? Well, pad is kind of stupid, right? But the downside is you don't have the freedom of your right hand. You're constrained to these fingers, and negative edging with the face buttons is actually very difficult. You can negative edge with triggers, but it also means that you won't really have access to that button in such a comfortable way. So, I mean, technically maybe you could make it work, but for me it's definitely a comfort thing. So, I predominantly play pad, as I've mentioned, for BBCF, and you could probably see why. It literally offers all of the advantages of hitbox because of how the game interprets inputs. So, I don't really need to play on hitbox, and if you think that I'm a fraud for doing this stuff, I take my word for it, I don't use this stuff in tournament. I think truly if people were playing on this level, pad and hitbox should both be banned and stick should just be the preferred way to play the games. But, you know, it's 2019 and people play at home and are comfortable and stuff. So pragmatically, I actually don't think it's an issue at the moment because no one's really doing anything with it. If you watch this video and then you start doing crazy stuff, power to you. I don't really care. But overall, I play stick in a lot of games. I really enjoy playing stick, and you know, even though all that dumb stuff exists, I still like playing stick, right? I still play stick for every other game, and I have played in arcades in Japan, you know, that kind of thing. I definitely think it was worth it to play on stick. You also get to put really cute art of your favorite anime girl on it, or maybe your anime boy. I don't. It's, you know, anime girls. I'm sorry. Anyway, so a lot of the benefits from a hitbox you can actually accomplish with pad 2, but it does still give you the freedom of the right hand. So if you're playing a character with like heavy negative edge left and you still want all those crazy inputs, like Arakune, right? Hitbox would be a great pick for Arakune. So you definitely want to think about your game and you want to think about your character. Right, so games interpret inputs a little differently, but as for ArcSys games and most anime games, they have the thing where a D-pad is considered to be a higher priority input than the analog stick. So you're able to do stuff with those like buffered first frame inputs, which is honestly absurd, right? I think that kind of stuff is just like ridiculous. It definitely is. those inputs will give you access to a lot of the shortcuts that Hitbox provides without having to deal with the, you know, the kind of double-edged sword of having to release inputs, because it will give you innately faster dashes that way with the shortcut, but half circles are a little tough. You know, general input consistency is kind of, you know, built around 2 points of failure rather than 1. So something to think about, you know, something to think about. But yeah, I think that's pretty clear as to why I play pad. Aside from me just being comfortable with it, I think from a competitive angle, it's definitely really good for some games. But if I played different characters and had different needs, I would play a different controller, probably. So, you know, it's what it is. Definitely do some research into your game and see how it interprets inputs. You could pick your controller method, or you could just decide you like the culture and you really want to slap an anime girl's butt on your stick.